questions for when we're done. But to kick us off, I'm going to bring up our Mayor of Chamblee. We're in the city of Chamblee, but everyone doesn't know that. So the Mayor of Chamblee, Brian Mock, is also my boss. He is the chairman of the board for Discover DeKalb Convention Visitor Bureau, as well as the chairman of the board for Sports DeKalb. I'm going to come up with a couple more chairmen for him. He doesn't have enough to do as mayor. You need to work him some more. So, welcome, Brian.
Yeah, thank you. And well, good morning, everybody. I will be very brief and take 30 seconds. I welcome you all here again this morning to the city of Chamblee. I want to thank James Tizolakis and the Bureau here for putting this together for us and bringing us together this morning. And thank, of course, our honorable panel, our speakers that are going to share their knowledge with us this morning. As James said, I am not only a mayor, but I'm a hotelier. And I've been a hotelier for a lot longer than I've been in government. 35 years in the hospitality industry and about 10 years in city government. When I ran for office, I was told, you're going to get frustrated. It's not going to be easy for you because it's two very different paths. In the hotel business and the hospitality industry, we're putting out fires every day. We move quickly. It's always something different, always something new. And we work pretty quickly. If there's a fire, we get out the hose, we put it out, we take care of it, we move on. In government, things do move slowly. When there's a fire, you have to think about, well, what kind of equipment are we going to use? What's the next step? Is there a plan somewhere for this? And it takes a lot longer, and oftentimes the houses burn down before we get the fires out. But yes, it is quite different. But I can tell you one thing that's universal in both government and hospitality is taking care of people. It doesn't matter what role you're in. Taking care of people is universal. I mean, it's kindness matters. Hospitality matters, no matter what field you're in, what line of work you're in. It matters, and not just to our locals, but to our visitors. And it all crosses a path, because what many of you already know, but when you stay at a hotel, you pay taxes, and those taxes go back into the community. And in many cases, those taxes are used, as in most cities, for events, for locals. And so, when folks start complaining that you got too many visitors in your town, and the traffic is too heavy and things like that, think about all the economic generator. Think about all the economic advantages that all that traffic. I get tired of being caught up in traffic sometimes too, but I recognize the value of it.
Employing these figures, it can be estimated that every $1 spent on this event by the city yielded between $1.04 and $1.18. So in order for it to be a positive ROI, this output number has to be greater than $1. So something in the water did in fact produce a positive return on investment for the city of Virginia Beach. Here's another one. It was a Beach It Country Music Festival this past June. The city earned between $869,000 and $979,000 in tax revenues, along with approximately $46,000 in municipal parking. The city's expenditures, on the other hand, are tabulated at approximately $473,000. Therefore, employing these figures, it should be estimated that every dollar spent on this event yielded a return between $1.93 and $2.17. So this one was also positive. So here we go. As determined in the modeling, the city earned between $69,000 and $78,000 in tax revenues, along with $16,000 and $40 in ticket revenues. The city's expenses, on the other hand, are tabulated at $28,000. Therefore, employing these figures can be estimated that every $1 spent by the city earned between $3.02 and $3.41. Now, as we stated earlier, that's not always the case. Of these 8 events that we studied last year, 5 were positive, 3 were negative. And it happens every time. Whenever a negative one comes along, someone asks, why was it negative? And my response is, I don't know. I don't know. It's not in my contract to conjecture why an event was or was not positive. That's for the internal stakeholders to do. All right, this modeling is conservative because you get a lot of passive advertising out of events and festivals. You get a lot of advertising out there that's difficult to measure, therefore it cannot be included in this modeling. This modeling is also conservative because take a look at this quote coming out of Cincinnati. This is a pretty neat quote. The list of the markets that are the top 10 metro areas sending residents to greater Cincinnati is a slam dunk match for the markets that we target in order to bring travelers and tourists here. The president and CEO of Greater Cincinnati Tourism, this is her quote. And so what she's saying is that tourism is the first stake in economic impact, and in the sense that she's seeing it in the data, the markets that she sends information to try to draw tourists, those are the same people who are relocating to the area. Avoiding event fatigue. Dr. Muzo is going to be talking about quality of life in just a second. But the best thing that I ever saw is I worked with a community in Michigan called Saugatuck. It's the Art Coast of Michigan. They have more artists per capita than anywhere else in the U.S. There's the Oxbow Art School. And there was a lot of event fatigue in that community. And so what the CVB director did is she called all the stakeholders together and she said, let's come up with a list of guiding principles that we must adhere to if we're going to do a festival or event. And they came up with a list of 12 things that had to be in place if a festival or event was to occur.
And your product was able to tell us that we had 3,000 people for so many, like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 3,000, and they started leaving. But the program was able to tell us what restaurants they went to and how many. Did they go to like the antique store? How did they get there? So you can really use this to try to offset. The negative is it's going to be closed down. That's just a fact. But a lot of times restaurants will say, I'm not getting any business, or I'm closing because I'm not going to get any business because we can't get here. So now we can literally go in and show, well, you had this much business before, this much business after. We have a lot of times retail says, well, I'm not going to open up because I'm not going to get any business because you can't get here. Well, we actually had showing like one of these antique stores had a really good traffic. They did open, but many of them use the excuse of you can't get here, so I'm not going to open. So now we actually have the ability to go in, and it's not foolproof as normal. It is based on cell phones, and also it's probably more low than being too high. But we can now use this to our advantage to say, you should open up. You should staff up, because this is a good thing. So that's just that. Now let's just kick it off. I got questions if we need them, but we'll kick it off to our other panel. We can critique their presentations.
Again, thank you both for that. And I don't come from the economic impact side, so it's always funny to see it, or not funny, but interesting to see the sort of the wizardry. And I do want to just kind of pick up on a couple of points there, and I think particularly with Dr. Rizzo's quality of life. I think a lot about the idea, we talk about this a lot in tourism, the idea of place and place identity, and what, so when we think about place, you have space, which is, the boundaries of accounting here. The place is, what is it like? And obviously from a tourism perspective, we want it to have a positive place identity, right? We want it to be exciting or innovative or fun or interesting. We don't want negative place identity. We don't want dangerous or boring or something like that. And obviously you have those neutral things, right? Where it doesn't have a place identity. We don't have a strong idea of what it is. And I think one of the things that really comes about with, I think when I was thinking, particularly reflecting on Dr. Muzo's talk, is the idea of pride in community. And, I'm learning right now just how many newcomers you are having to your county who obviously have a lot of, different places that they could live, want to perhaps feel connected to the community, and from your perspective, that probably you don't want them to leave the community if they have another opportunity elsewhere. And I think about the idea of festivals and events being one of the ways of attracting and retaining capital, right? So whether it's economic capital with investment or social capital, you want with smart, innovative people who contribute to your communities, either economically through entrepreneurship or socially. And I think this is the role of things like festivals and events that sometimes gets overlooked. I grew up in this community in Canada that 6 months of the year it was minus 40 and lots of snow, pretty dark. But during the summer, really, 18 hours of sunlight. It was on the 54th parallel, which was wonderful. But we had a lot of festivals and events all year long. And of course, those are used in tourism. Of course, tourists interact with that, right? So they are wonderful visual events for tourism promotion, right? It helped to define our sense of place. But for people in those communities, we talk about leakage, is the idea of why would I want to go to another community? Or, I'm going to have my vacation here because I have a 9-day Fringe Theater Festival, or I have the best folk music festival, or I have this wonderful symphony festival, or goodness sake, of course I'm going to go to the Shakespeare Festival, right? So all those things interact with community and obviously, help to prevent leakage, particularly for local populations. But the pride that people showed in those as well, helped them to say, yes, I'm proud to be from this community. And I can imagine that places where I feel safe, where I meet my community, where we can interact, with Dr. Luzzo's presentation of quality of life, thinking about the idea of conservation of some of these spaces. We don't put, one of my colleagues at Clemson says, when we talk about, say, the economic impact of green spaces, we don't think about putting a coin into a park bench, right? I mean, it's something that because people feel that they want to interact with those spaces, they feel pride in those spaces, they meet their community in those spaces, they live in those spaces, they invest in those spaces, and then when a different municipality comes calling for them because they're educated people, they're bright people, they're entrepreneurial people, they say, well, wait a minute, maybe I want to stay here. Maybe this is the reason why I want to stay here, because of all these quality of life, all these, which includes events and festivals. So, I think about that from my own experience, and I see that a lot in the communities that I'm living in now. So it's always wonderful to think about these broader aspects of events and festivals that certainly, hopefully, tie into a little bit of what was talked about here today.
When Dr. Vincent was talking about as far as the houses and Virginia Beach, and I didn't really think about it that way until you broke it down, right? And so from a hotel ownership, when I mean breaking it down as far as the amount of money is spent when you go to an event, right? So I think I was doing some research, and I saw it's on average, typically people spend about, $200 a day go to an event, including hotels, food, and they just want to tour a particular city. From a hotel perspective, people really don't travel to hotel just look at the hotel, right? Unless they go for a particular reason. They go because it's the beach, it's there for a conference, or there for an event, right? And so from a hotel ownership perspective, when you're looking for a hotel, looking to buy a hotel, what is going to drive people to that hotel, right? Why Uber went to that? Because it's the economic driver, right? The economic generator. And so as far as the event, I'm going to train of thought. As far as when you mentioned Dr. Vincent breaking down, as far as the event, spending money, doing this, the revenue from it, right? The revenue that brings back to the city. Those are the things that we look at from a hotel perspective, from a hotel ownership perspective, right? Okay, what can be done? Again, the hotel owner want to make money, but again, how can we put more money back into the particular city? So having an event, bringing an event, having a quality, decent hotel, because it's hard to bring an event to a particular area and you don't have a place for them to stay. You want them to have a quality place to stay. They can come back and stay, and they can come enjoy and spend more money in that particular area.
I appreciate your presentations, and I wanted to piggyback for the quality of life. I was considering what quality of life to me, and physically healthy, of course, that is plus, and emotionally healthy, which is very important. At the same time, economically affordable. That is how I can define in personal level. And this morning, what I thought was, what was my first activity when I just woke up? What was your first activity getting out of your bed? To be honest with you this morning, and my first activity was checking up my cell phone. What time is it? And what emails that I received? I went to bed little over 1 a.m. this morning and woke up 4:50 a.m. And first action was to check my cell phone. Then I realized what is average time of internet connected screen time for average Americans. Believe it or not, data shows 7 hours, 4 minutes. Out of 100 hours? No, just 24 hours a day. The average hour that we have spent on screen time with internet connected, 7 hours, 4 minutes a day. That is average hour for American. Out of those hours, 3 hours, 46 minutes for television, and 1 hour, 46 minutes for video game, 1 hour, 26 minutes for social media, 56 minutes for browsing. So basically, 46% of our waking time is related to what? Internet connected screen time. So to me, how we bring our community, how we bring our local people to get together is basically fighting with the screen time. Then you can lead our physical and mental health to get out from our screen time. Just a week ago, during the spring break in this area, Fulton and DeKalb County, around this time on Friday, I took my family to Panama City. So basically, I was on driving and same time as last Friday. And when I got back, I realized I spent only 2 hours and 20 minutes with my cell phone. But the average hour for me to use my phone and screen is around 4 hours. So when we grow up, we are not used to have internet or internet-related technologies, which means we have spent great time with our community, with our family member. That's why we have great memory to remember, to remind what I have done with my family member. But let's think our current life. I have my boy and girl who are in high school and middle school. Getting out of their school, when they wake up in the morning, they will rush to eat breakfast, go to school, and come back and do their homework and go to bed. The life is not that fantastic. So I kept talking to my kids. What am I supposed to do? And my daughter said, who is middle school, yes, Dad, and you said that always. Let's eat, let's play, let's play. And that is what I said to my kids. Let's eat, let's drink, let's play. That's how I can hand over our great experience here together with our family members to later life. So long story short, what I'm talking to you about the quality of life and event, enterprise event and festival, we have to win our argument over our competitors from screen time. Then I trust we can have better quality of life where we live in this area. As we had mentioned last night, we had great time for our dinner at Chambly area. It's really fantastic. I was waiting for more than 10 minutes to park. That is our community. That is how we can contribute our community from my work that I can source our economic value. So quality of life to me and to my family is how much time we can spend together. How much time we can talk with our community member, local resident in our area. So that is quality of life to me and to my family. Thank you.
But I just pick up on this too, it's fantastic. Just maybe I can piggyback on what Craig said, and that I'll just also, this is important. Maybe just, okay, I'll just pick up on yours. Okay, so in today's world, it's so good, that is true. These events and festivals give us a reason to get out as a family, community. I think if we can have, let's say, good showcased events, hopefully that will take that technology time away from your family, because a lot of times we don't have good things happening in our destination as a community to get out as a family. So in terms of benefits of, let's say, events contributing to family sense of well-being, that's exactly what you're getting at in a way. If we have some more distance, now I have a reason, like we go out and watch this little game or event or festival in that town, right? So we do that thing. I think that's the whole idea, because having these things available to us, they'll make us think good. But there's a reason for us to get out and enjoy. Therefore, something that will contribute to your sense of well-being. I agree with that. I think that's how we can utilize that extra or fight with that 48% of our technology time. So I'm also just going back to, like Greg's point, I always believe that a good place to live is got to be a good place to visit. A good place to visit has got to be a good place to live. There's no question about that. That's how it goes. So therefore, we don't want to do, let's say, the so-called events and festivals at the expense of impinging on the well-being of locals either. It's got to be a balance to act here. So, right? And not losing the local identity, not losing the local culture. Our idea is tapping into what we have and showcase all this to the extent that, we feel good about it, proud about all this, and also, offer something to others that will find what we have unique and different. I think that's how we should go about this, right, Greg?
Yeah, and I was going to say, one of the things that when I teach tourism class in my undergraduates at Clemson, they value the authentic and they value the local.
That is some of the, as Dr. Greg said, it's the authentic. So we have a lot of, the international drive is the international cult of food. I mean, that's the place to go if you want all the different types of food. And the more real food for the culture versus the Americanized version of it. But then we also have the great festivals with an Arab Fest coming up later in this year, and Greek Fest, and Mexican Independence Day, and Chinese New Year's, and Stone Mountain Park has Highland Games, Scottish Highland Games, and the Native American Powwow, and then on and on and on. There's just different cultural, ethnic, international events. So using that, the people are the reason we can have those. The culture is the reason we can have those. Clarkston being the refugee capital of the country, there is some assets there that we can utilize.
In terms of cultural identity or diversity, I wanted to bring my experience as well, because I originally came from South Korea. As you may know, we have only one ethnicity group, which gives some kind of challenge to understand society, because in general, when I grew up, it seems like if there is different idea, it feels like that's wrong rather than different. But over 3 years ago, I came to U.S. to second in this country, which is blessed. And again, different word from wrong or right was different. Someone is different from my view, not just wrong or right. So that be my understanding of cultural diversity, cultural identity, which gives better idea to move in a better situation with different ideas to conclude great solution. So that is how I understood with cultural identity and cultural diversity. As James has mentioned, with international festivals surrounded in this area, as far as I understand, here in the county, we had 54% of population from Black and 44% of population of white and the rest of Asian and Hispanic are very mixed. It gives better understanding of our society, also offers variety of different culture along with different food. If I'm sitting in Korea, I'm addicted to kimchi, as you know. But nowadays, I'm not usually eating kimchi because there are so many different food that I wanted to try. So that is how different culture nurture me to adjust how this community, this country has offers for us to understand other personality. So that is how I understand for cultural diversity and cultural identity. Which is great.
Again, everyone get to this diversity of culture. I think one area of studying cultural heritage and tourism, I have one area of studying sport tourism, both of them are kind of interlinked. And one thing I always tell to my heritage students is that not every destination has a mountain range or a beautiful lake or everything else. Everywhere has culture and everywhere has heritage. Everywhere does. And I think in terms of product development, and it sounds like in DeKalb, you have a pre-existing, particularly around your ethnic diversity. Everywhere has culture, everywhere has heritage, and I think that's something to think about when you are doing festival and event development and product development. I think the other thing is, and I think one of the things moving from Canada where we play hockey and then play more hockey, is actually appreciating the diversity of even sporting cultures here. And probably many of you who have children, a lot of your discretionary spending becomes non-discretionary when you look at tournaments and so forth, right? So I have a 12-year-old who plays travel soccer, and that's a lot of our vacation time. But you think about all of the subcultures, even in things like sport, and this is why I think it's important for communities to invest in recreational spaces, invest in leisure facilities, invest in, it could be even a convention center or something like that, or that can host certain kinds of sports. Because one of the things of being in this country for 15, 16 years is the diversity of sporting cultures here that also host events. I am a fencer. Anyone here fence? I'm building skills for the 18th century. That's what they say, right? But there's no entire fencing subculture, right? I mean, there's obviously ones around, say, martial arts, things like that. When I talk to my sport tourism students, it's not, Super Bowl, Olympic, World Cup, all of which this metro area has hosted or will be hosting, right? But it's all these sort of smaller events, or events you haven't ever heard of, or sports you haven't ever heard of. I have one of the people who does sport tourism development for Greater Cleveland. And he said, when he talked to my students, he said, we've hosted the NFL draft. We've had NLB All-Star Game. They just had the Women's Final Four, which just blew it out of the water. He said, the biggest event we have is the Pan American Masters Games, which none of you have heard of. And so he said, that's going to be one of the biggest economic impacts for us. And it's not something you're going to see on ESPN. So I think that's one of the things to think about is those diversities of different cultures. But that everywhere, I think that with the heritage side, everywhere has heritage, and I think it's finding what you can do with that and have it as that authentic culture that is, attracts it, both retains it, and conserves it for the local people, but also is something that tourists want to interact with as well.
Great. I was like, great. I've actually been mentioning that rabbit for culture. I'm not necessarily a foodie. Like, I just go to Longhorn. That's just me. Too much to think about. But I've been forcing myself, if I do go to different cities, to figure out what's the culture, go to a local restaurant, create an experience around that. And to your point, you'll come into events, you get to learn about it, all these different things that you will probably find. So my mission is, when I go to a different city, try to patronize something that I can't be back home in Atlanta. To your point, that cultural part. I'm a big history buff, so I love learning about different cultures. I love learning about just anything history, religious, whatever. That's just me. I'm just big in history, and a lot of people are like that. They would literally travel the world, travel the country, especially post-COVID. They're figuring out, okay, it's a lot of pockets that they can travel to that they don't have to necessarily travel internationally. They can take advantage of the different cultural events in a particular county. So I'm really glad that you.
Yeah, I think it's souls and events to the brand image and personality of DeKalb, and that's why umbrella branding is important and the decalibrate is important. So regardless of what type of festival or event it is, the decalibrate branding would tie it all back together. One thing when we do the spending profiles for the economic impacts, the largest pocket of spending is typically on lodging. And so what might be useful would be package deals or special bundle deals to where if folks come for festivals and events, they get the best deals if they stay in the hotels and lodging here as opposed to a neighboring municipality. And then the last thing, if I could, that I have on my notes here is that sometimes if an event is perceived to have a negative effect on local resident quality of life, if you sit back and look as a team of local residents, oftentimes it was only 2 or 3 bottleneck points that caused that. So maybe you could alleviate those 2 or 3 bottleneck points if you sit back and say, well, one bottleneck point was that this area was closed down the weekend before because they were setting up. Why don't we do the event next year, but let's not set up until on Monday so that we don't block that off for local residents the weekend before. So oftentimes if you alleviate a couple of bottlenecks, the resident quality of life will no longer be hindered.
We're getting close to time to the Q&A, but before we do that, I want to give each of you all opportunity. Is there anything last you want to add? And then we'll open it up to hopefully questions from the audience.
We take advantage of that as far as driving people to come, not only come to your city, come to your event, but bringing exposure to that landlord, and also working with event planners too, right? Because they're bringing the event to your particular city. So what else can you do to incentivize going back to those packages? Making it not just the event, but how can you really explore the city?
After the 2 hours you do here. So if you think about that and the fact that Atlanta is always either 1 or 2 for our feeder cities, you can package your festival and market it next door almost and get people to come. So you can market it as a staycation, you can market it as a playcation, you can market it as just a cultural weekend getaway, because Atlanta is so close. Birmingham is one of our big feeder cities. Charlotte, Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, Miami, they're getting further down from Miami, but, you know, Montgomery are all, even Macon, Savannah, are our feeder cities to people to come and stay in our hotels. They can come to your fest.
Panel. One of the questions I have is surrounding data. Data kind of drives everything, and it gives us the feedback we need. Just out of curiosity, what are some ways, I know Bing-Stick, you mentioned like you use drones and you send out surveys, but not everyone fills those surveys out. Do you provide incentives, or like with the change of technology, what are some amazing ways to kind of just get people to complete surveys? I know in the past I've offered Starbucks gift card, things of that nature. Just what are some great ways to really secure data when it comes to having these amazing events and seeing how they drive the economic aspect?
Sure, thank you. So the way that we handle that is immediately following the event. So we had a rodeo this past weekend that we covered. So the rodeo ended on Sunday evening, and on Monday morning I sent the QR code and the link to the survey to my contact at the organization, the event organizer. And he knew it was coming. He is charged with sending out the survey through all his email channels and all his social media channels to get a statistically valid representative sample of who was there. And actually, we've already hit statistical validity. I logged into Qualtrics this morning. And then next week, he'll send a follow-up email saying, hey, last call, here's your last chance. It takes 2 to 3 minutes. We need your feedback. We have never had to incentivize in any of these projects. We've never had to incentivize a survey participation. We've always been able to get a valid sample without.
And I'm a graduate student at Georgia State University studying global hospitality management. And my question, first of all, this panel's been amazing, very informative, and about what's going on in DeKalb. And my question goes back to someone made the statement about crown jewel hospitality being is authenticity, and I thought that was a really powerful statement. And so I just wanted to know from you all, as far as what is DeKalb doing to encourage that authenticity for Atlanta and for DeKalb County?
This event was designed to bring our event planners and our city officials and our community organizations and EDCs to hear, not from me, but from here from the panel of experts telling us how we can make our events bigger, better, longer to generate that economic impact. So this literally was the first step, because I can talk about it all day, but I'm paid to do this. I'm paid to tell you how great everything is. But I bring the experts in, and Greg's going to talk in a second, that tells you what can we do to make this better.
Well, and I was going to say, I mean, we haven't been here for a particularly long time, but we got a little taste of it last night. So, maybe 20 years ago, this event happens and we go to a Chris Steakhouse, so we just got everywhere, right? Here it becomes very placeless. Last night we went to a restaurant called the Alden, which has a local place, local produce, those sorts of things. And again, that we can, if you want to get tourism academics are going for 6 months, say what is authenticity, right? But for us, just from a perception, from an experience perspective, those are the sorts of things where you have a unique dining experience, or you have a unique cultural experience, or you have a space that you can't really get anywhere else. And I think that, but for me, and again, speaking to 22-year-old students all day, the value there is on durable goods, it's on the experience, and the idea is we want that ability to interact in spaces and with people who are there, live there. That's, we want to be with the locals. We want to dine on local food. We want to drink local beer. We want to see local galleries and local artists, right? I think that's where you go from the placeless or generic to very much the place-based. And that is a challenge. I mean, James and I have talked about this a lot, is I think, and that's maybe where the role of festival and event is not only generate pride and community, but generating a sense of place. So that in this particular municipality, here are the things that are sort of the authentic festivals that represent, or authentic experiences that represent the culture and heritage.
Well, to take that even further, anyone can email us after this event ideas for how do we make these festivals better. I mean, email us concepts of, you heard this, what do we expand on if you need additional information, or do you have great ideas? Send it to Siri, S-E, what is Siri's name? You send it to me, it's going to get bogged down.
So if you have any questions, you can send it to my email address at DiscoveryKev, Siri, SIRIE at DiscoveryKev.com. More time to take questions to PhDs.
If it comes to me, you're going to get I'm going to hit come back to read, and then hopefully I do get back to it. But, and Siri drives me crazy because my phone goes off all the time. But he was before Siri. So, and I'm glad you wanted the question. The three right there are going to be my future students in June and July dealing with offense. So, glad we had a question over there. I'm going to close up. I'm going to give Siri another person.
Yeah, it is good part of the authenticity. And I think just for doubling onto that, if you have those spaces where tourists are able to interact with locals, and locals are happy to host them, rather than I'm going to flee away and I don't want to see any of you. That's not only quality of life. I mean, the local culture and the local people are the attraction.
The product was able to tell us that we had 3,000 people for so many, like 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 3,000, and they started leaving. But the program was able to tell us what restaurants they went to and how many. Did they go to like the antique store? How did they get there? So you can really use this to try to offset. The negative is it's going to be closed down. That's just a fact. But a lot of times the restaurants will say, I'm not getting any business, or I'm closing because I'm not going to get any business because we can't get here. So now we can literally go in and show, well, you had this much business before, this much business after. We have a lot of times retail says, well, I'm not going to open up and I'm not going to get any business because you can't get here. Well, we actually had showing like one of these antique stores had a really good traffic. They did open, but many of them use the excuse of you can't get here, so I'm not going to open. So now we actually have the ability to go in, and it's not foolproof as normal. It is based on cell phones, and also it's probably more low than being too high. But we can now use this to our advantage to say, you should open up. You should staff up, because this is a good thing.
Then I'm glad that you mentioned that, because as I'm thinking, to the people point of how can we tap and get more business and create events. Like I was at an event in Forest Park, and it was a senior community. They had a dance group, and they was out there out dancing everybody and showing me the new dances. And so, to your point, tapping into those communities, because there is, seniors are not like what they like. My grandma, seniors are moving and got through it and everything. So, to your point, tapping into that, so the people, how can we tap into getting business? I'm glad that you stood up. So hopefully somebody has some really good ideas.
Okay. And I'll just add, one of the, and I mentioned this briefly before, but one of the most powerful events that some of the ones that I dealt with in my hometown were Masters Games. And Masters Games, you're not familiar with the Masters Games event. It starts at 35, but it goes all the way up. They'll have folks in their 90s running. And part of the appeal of that is not only people don't just come into the community, run their 100 meters and leave. They stay in the community, usually for a number of days. They bring their spouse, and they actually go into other churches as well. We did a study on the World Masters Games, which was in Edmonton, Canada, 2005, and we found that people sort of traveled hemispherically, but they stayed in the community for 9 days. And these were the leading age was 62, the 63. So you had everybody, but you had generally professionals as well. So and a lot more disposable income. We had travel out of season. That's another really powerful thing. They're not confined by school holidays and things like that. So travel out of season and certainly even off season, which is really important.
The comments of what a wonderful morning this has been. Incredibly important, relevant information. I'm going to thank everyone that's on the leadership team here putting this together, and all of you participants. I think the exciting thing is that, James, through your leadership, this will continue. This is just starting some very exciting trends. And let me tell you, not only as a hospitality educator, someone with hospitality industry experience, but a DeKalb County citizen, I'm very, very supportive of all of that. But this is going to continue. So all of you should feel very good about this. This is important to DeKalb.